drives are fun when you're on the go. There's nothing better in the world to make you smile than the Tom Anderson Show.
We are back with the one and only Tuckerman Babcock. Welcome back to the Tom Anderson Show. Good morning, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We're on 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Friday right here on KVNT, 1020 a.m. and 92.5 FM, TomAndersonShow.com if you want to listen to this interview and any others. And we're going to make a YouTube video of this one as well so you can hear Tuckerman's thoughts. So, Tuckerman Babcock, you're the former chief of staff of Governor Mike Dunleavy's administration. You're the former GOP, my favorite of all-time GOP chairman for Alaska. You even were a head honcho out here at MEA, which has been a longtime client of ours. And you're a friend of mine. We were legislative aides together. How are you, my friend? And are you just as busy as years past?
Good morning, Tom. Wow, what an introduction. I am not as busy as in years past, at least with politics. I am focused a great deal on the multitude of grandchildren I've been blessed with, 11 so far, 3 more on the way, all under the age of 6.
Oh, boy. I watch with great interest and love, and I'm always hitting the heart sign for you and Christy. Christy, by the way, you want to, this is not Tuckerman's words, it's mine. You want to get the best agent out there, State Farm. She has helped me and my dad. We switched to Christy Babcock because we heard so many good things unrelated to this interview, but a plug for State Farm. You want to talk about great rates and responsiveness, and her staff just as important and big of a deal as her, and that matters when you have staff in an insurance agency. So thank you, Christy, your lovely bride. And by the way, yes, Lida Green's daughter, a big fan of hers when she was in the state Senate. Let's talk, Tuckerman, about, with all the kudos aside, we've had some disruption in the force over the last weekend particularly. U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski, folks were ticked off. Forget Planned Parenthood or ideology on pro-life or pro-choice. Looking at Trump and impeachment, looking at Kavanaugh and votes there and some other things. Pebble Mine, you go down the line. Do you feel what happened last weekend, and maybe you can explain to the public, do you feel that was appropriate, and what exactly did happen in terms of censorship?
Oh, that's an excellent question. There are 3 main points. And I was there as the immediate past chairman of the party. I'm on the Central Committee, so I participated in the vote. And the 3 points. 1 is this has never happened before. 2, it's not one issue, but a whole compilation of issues where Lisa Murkowski has not been in any way associated with the Republican philosophy or platform, culminating in an irresponsible demand in January that the President of the United States resign. And then, after he was out of office, voting to impeach a private citizen. And that was the culmination and the icing on the cake, the last straw, as it were. And the debate was an hour and a half. There were about 75 people there, all volunteers, and elected by Republicans around the state. And the debate was very civil, but the vote was absolutely overwhelming, 77% in favor of the resolution in motion. And then the third point is that for the first time, the party decided that they were going to unite behind recruiting a replacement for Lisa Murkowski and, to the extent allowed by law, prohibit her from ever running as a Republican again.
Now, how does that work, and will she challenge it? Will your letter or email, not your, but will the GOP's letter, email, a missive to her work? And I pause because I'm trying to think of what the reaction would be. Will she say, okay, I'll yank the Republican off my affiliation, or how does that work?
It's a legal matter. You know, Alaskans passed this ballot measure too by a very, very narrow margin, but I don't know that when they voted for it that they really understood all the bizarre aspects of ranked voting, or the fact that party primaries have been eliminated. So Alaskans will no longer be allowed to vote to choose the Democrat or Republican nominee. That has been stripped away by that ballot measure 2. Instead, the top 4 vote getters in round 1 go to round 2. And in round 2, if nobody gets 50%, anyway, it goes through a whole bunch of ranked vote machinations. The side effect is that the political party has to figure out, all right then, if the state's not going to conduct a primary, how do we nominate or authorize our candidates? And that led to the committee taking action saying, our first step is Lisa Murkowski will not be an authorized or nominated Republican candidate, and we're going to recruit an opponent. Or at least the leadership was directed to do that. And how that plays out legally on the ballot is a different matter, and it's a kind of an unknown. Right now, the ballot measure 2 argues that any person can go forward and claim any party that they want. If I wanted to run for governor, and I
wish,
and put Democrat by my name, under the current ballot measure 2, the state would have to do that. It would say Tuckerman Babcock, Democrat. And the Democratic Party couldn't do anything about it. And that is not constitutional. So that'll be sorted out over the next year and a half. But in the meantime, the Republican Party of Alaska has made it absolutely clear, overwhelmingly, that they censored Lisa Murkowski for her many votes, and we are going to be recruiting a candidate to run against her, and we're going to be doing everything that the party can to prevent her from claiming to be a Republican in the next election.
We're talking with Tuckerman Babcock, former chief of staff for Governor Mike Dunleavy, longtime businessman, and he's a political that's insightful, former GOP of Alaska chairman, and as I mentioned, one of my, if not my favorite, for his results, and that's what matters when it comes to chairmanship of any party in a state. Taking calls from Matt Sue, Israel calling in. Good morning, Israel. What's your question for Tuckerman Babcock?
Hey, yeah, good morning, Tom. This is Israel Payton up in Wasilla. Glad I tuned in this morning. But one question on ballot measure 2. I helped on that a little bit to try to defeat it. Unfortunately, we lost. But I thought it didn't apply to federal races. I thought it only applied to state races. So I might be wrong on that. But when reading through it, I thought that was the issue. And so that'd be a question or something to look into. The second thing is, as far as what the Republican Party did and not backing Lisa now, I mean, she's a great person. Her and her husband spent time with him on the water, but just her policies for Alaska is not working. I've been disappointed in some of her policy decisions, and we need 2 strong, people in there. We need someone to back up Sullivan, and I don't see that moving forward with her. So I wholeheartedly agree with the decision.
Israel, thanks for the call. Israel, Peyton, and Matsu, and Israel is a up-and-comer, and you'll see him. I hope he runs for office at some point. A friend of mine lives on an adjacent lake in the valley. So, Israel, nice to hear from you. And Tuckerman, so let's go to his second point, and then we'll go to his question. The second point was that, hey, Lisa's a nice person. A lot of people are friends to her. This doesn't feel good, but it was necessary. Do you hear that often?
I do, and to some extent I share that. Lisa and I were both legislative aides in the early 1980s in Juneau, and it's not a matter of personal opinion. It's a political opinion, and her decisions and her votes, and she stands by them, which she has every right to do, but not as a Republican, according to the Alaska Republican Party. It's just a bridge too far, too many times, calling on the president to resign, voting present on Brett Kavanaugh, being the deciding vote to fail to repeal the Obamacare. It goes on and on. But one of the interesting, and as far as the federal Israel brought up about the federal races, I think that is only the presidential race that is exempt from ballot measure 2.
I think you're correct on that. What I believe is that this will unfold and there will be challenges from the Murkowski side, prognosticating, and you're the best in the state and one of the best in the nation in political strategy. You probably have an inclination of what would happen. I know that there's an Alaska Native contingency and there are some Democrat crossovers. There are independents. There are some labor union folks. I would love to hold you through the break here if you have time, Tuckerman, and we'll be quick. But if you could think about over the break here, you can call back. Rick will talk to you on the break how to do that. We would like to hear from you about strategy. And if someone is recruited, do you have people in mind? So think about that answer. And if not, whomever does surface, how would people counter against Lisa those votes and those voting sections that in aggregate are going to push Lisa into the win column, and we've seen that in the past. We're talking with Tuckerman Babcock. We're going to zoom to a break and come right back. He's the former GOP chairman for Alaska and former chief of staff for Mike Dunleavy and my friend. Stay with us. Tom Anderson Show.
This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KBNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Talking with Tuckerman Babcock, former GOP Alaska chairman and chief of staff to Mike Dunleavy. And before the break, we were looking at the potential and basically the demographics of Lisa Murkowski, who would support her. So I want to talk about that, Tuckerman, and then also this notion of accountability, that she has to be accountable, the path to victory if you did recruit someone, who might that be, and also like PACs and IEs, all the different elements and moving parts. I know some of this you can't delineate because it hasn't occurred yet, but what's the general macro plan, and particularly on who could be recruited?
All right. I'll start with the first point, and it's Lisa Murkowski has won several elections. She lost one, the primary in 2010. But in all the elections that she's won, she has never received 50% of the vote. She always wins with a minority. And in 2016, she got reelected with 44% of the vote. So while people think ballot measure 2, which requires in the second round a 50% vote, thinks that benefits her, I'm not sure that it does, because she's never gotten 50% of the vote before. And I think that the Democrats in this state are not going to sit by, as they have done in the past, and let Lisa Senator Murkowski have a free ride. They're going to run a strong candidate, and I suspect it's a good chance that Senator Murkowski would come in third, and then her second place votes would go to the other two candidates. But aside from that analysis, let's look at the need. You look at the last Senate election against Senator Sullivan, and I think that between the independent groups and the Democrats, they spent $40 million. So
wow.
A lot of money is needed to run for the state Senate, or U.S. Senate in the modern era. And so what I would be looking for is, who does former President Trump endorse? Who does he decide to get behind? Because if that person is in any way a viable candidate, that's who I'm personally going to support, because we need the attention, we need the fundraising ability of the former president, and that's what I'll be looking for as a key indicator of who the strong candidate is.
Tuckerman, you have a huge fan base, and it's a growing fan base because of your intellect. You're still young enough, man. You could serve multiple terms in any seat, whether it was governor or Congress. Congress is a pain because you got to run pretty much every year and campaign. Have you been talked to about this? And I know I'm probably catching you off guard with that question, but it's a fair question, and I'm serious. Have people talked to you? I know, there are business owners. It's kind of like Mike Robbins. A lot of people encouraged him to run for mayor. Whether he wins or not, a lot of people went after him and said, hey, you'd be a good mayor, and you've never run before. Have people come to you in terms of the U.S. Senate, because Dunleavy's in the governor's seat. Don Young's in the congressional seat, but this is one that I would think you might be pushed for.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm very honored by that thought, Tom. I've been involved in politics very heavily for 40 years, and I just don't have it in my heart to be filing for an office like that, and I look forward to supporting someone else. And, the names that have been tossed around are Joe Miller's and Sarah Palin's and Kelly Shabaka and Mike Dunleavy, and a number of other people that might come forward. But really the person I'd be looking for is, who does President Trump going to get behind? Because with President Trump's support comes attention nationwide and the millions of dollars necessary to run a strong campaign.
Well, I'm a fan club member. I'm the chair, so other than your family. So one other question I'll get off you personally. If there was a Governor Tuckerman Babcock, U.S. Senator Mike Dunleavy, U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan, and then one of the aforementioned Shabaka, I don't know how to pronounce her name properly, sorry, or Palin, and they got in Congress, I mean, the future looks bright with the right people when it comes to the bright measure from the GOP perspective and vantage point, correct? That there is hope in the future.
I think so, Tom. Yeah, I think that there are so many opportunities in Alaska. We have between the fishing and mining and oil and gas and incredible tourism. We're a safe state, and there are a lot of hard decisions to be made. We can't keep living in the past regarding what we expect from government, and we need the tools and the freedom as citizens in this state to make our own decisions, our own investments, and create our own businesses. And I think this state will take off, and it's ready to do that, but you have to have the right people in leadership, and you have to have some new people back in Washington.
When it comes to the state legislature, and for instance, Laura Reinbold, she has now jumped up into the line and is not pestering leadership with the mask or not mask. Do you foresee them getting some things done in the next month? I'm sure you're crossing your fingers. Hey, it's St. Patrick's Day. You're hopeful. It's hard to guess, isn't it? With the legislature, it's hard to guess. Whichever legislature it's in. You and I were down there as aides for years, and you never know, do you, what can get accomplished or not?
That's right. And I really appreciate the work Senator Murkowski did to hold the Republicans together in the Senate and have a majority, and kudos to him. The House, once again, we are subject to being stabbed in the back, and that's very frustrating. Louis Stutes has done it year after year. So to her credit, that's no mystery, and she gets reelected with her constituents knowing that's what she's going to do, so that's fair enough. I mainly expect from politicians that they're honest and they do what they say they're going to do, and they try hard to do that, and that they realize some compromises are necessary to get things done, but that their relationship with the voters, the people, is an honest one, a transparent one, and that's what I hope for. As far as getting anything done, I think that the voters have elected a very divided legislature, especially in the House, so I think the voters will find that not much gets done when you do that.
I was interested because I've been a lawmaker and I was an aide for almost 6 years, started in the LIO, you remember. I remember when you'd come and visit and we would chat. That's when we first became friends, and then I moved into the legislative aid realm. I look at a Kelly Merrick, who I've never met, I've never interviewed, Sarah Rasmussen, who I consider, we've never hung out, but we've worked together. In fact, she's been a client for some small projects, and I have been a fan of hers, and I'm not saying I'm not a fan now. I think she's smart and capable and a rising star, but I haven't been thrilled with this legislative session and how things unfolded. The fact that Merrick is the chair, I believe, of the House Finance Committee, or co-chair, I mean, my gosh, I want to see people with skill sets in those positions, and no discredit to Kelly, but I don't know if she has that. Do you ever get concerned when you see who becomes chair of what committee? I've always been that way. I want people with I'm a huge fan of Kevin McCabe, and I want people with really actual tangible skill sets and experience to run the committees. Do you see that happening in the future or now, or is that again a wishful thinking because it's not based always on resume, is it? It could be based on popularity in the legislature, who gets what committee chairmanship, or based on tactics.
Right, and I won't comment too much about the internal workings of the legislature, but I would note as a historical fact that when Paul Seaton stabbed the Republicans in the back and the Democrats rewarded him with the co-chair of finance, he was defeated in the next election.
Welcome, Sarah Vance. That's correct. So, yeah, those are things to be concerned of. Well, in wrap-up, again, we're talking about Tuckerman Babcock, and we're going to make a YouTube video out of this, and not for the imaging, but so you can hear the audio. And, of course, at TomAndersonShow.com, you can go to our podcast. It's right up on the top screen, and you can click and listen or download the audio. Last question is, for next steps, when will we know, and is there a concerted effort, or can you discuss that or divulge that on some of the aforementioned individuals interested in running, or my speculation is no, that you can't really corral them and pick one? For instance, Sarah Palin she would be amenable to discuss things. Sarah's a friend, but I would assume she will have her own momentum without conferring with the Alaska GOP. Or would you say, no, we're going to pick one and all the rest will stand to the side and say kumbaya for that one?
Well, that's too much for me to comment on, Tom. I am not in the party leadership currently, so they're the ones who've been instructed by the State Central Committee to recruit a candidate. How they go about doing that is unknown to me at this point. But I would say all eyes should be on former President Donald Trump, because who he decides to support is, if that person is in any way viable, that's who we should support.
Oh, boy, that's exciting, man. Tuckerman Babcock, big hugs. Thank you for your service to our state and continued service. We look forward to hearing from you again. Okay, my friend, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. God bless. Bye, Tom.
Absolutely. That's Tuckerman Babcock. What a guy. We'll have the YouTube video up later, probably by this evening. So stay with us. Tom Anderson Show.